Okay, the last talk in the session is by Mathias Knudsen, and he's going to tell us why linear hashing is awesome.
Can you hear me? It's good? Yeah. Okay. And that's exactly what I'm going to tell you. So if you think it's a funny title, then I will explain it. But I won't actually start explaining the title. But I'll talk about what I'm going to tell you about today. And I will promise I'll finish before the coffee break. So you'll have your coffee. And it's hash functions, no surprise, I hope, right? Or otherwise you went to session B instead of session A. And I'm only going to talk about this particular hash function. So I'll just see if yes, this thing. So this is I have a hash functions from some universe of keys, and it takes as an input an integer from 0 to u minus 1, and then I have chosen as parameters to the hash functions two random numbers, a and b, from 0 to p minus 1, uniformly and independently. And what I do is I calculate mod p, ax plus b, and then I take mod n of the result. Right, so this is if I want to use a hash function with, for instance, hashing with chaining, where I have a hash table with n elements, and I put them in once, one at a time. Okay, and I think I've heard this is used in practice. Now I'm just going to tell you why you should listen and not fall asleep during the talk, even though maybe the chairs are comfortable. They're not really, though. So, and it's a simple thing. It can be described very easily, and then it's famous. So at least kind of. I think most of you probably saw it during like the first algorithms course. And I'll just say, I think it's used in practice. I never talk to anyone who uses anything in practice, so it's what I've heard. And then when I say it's simple in theory. Actually, if you want to implement it, then maybe it's not so simple, because if you have large keys, then you have to like consider multiplication, overflow, and then it gets kind of complicated. But I still think it's a nice and fundamental thing. So it's still famous, right? So. Okay, and this is the basic thing I'll consider. So this is, I guess, the most basic hash functions with the most basic application. We insert n keys into a table of size n. And the expected insertion time is constant. We all know that. So there's nothing more to do, right? And I can end the talk. But I'll just say, if I insert n keys into a table, what is the longest insertion time? Like, what is the worst case time over this insertion? This is exactly how long is the longest chain, or how large is the largest bucket. And exactly, it corresponds to the worst case time. And it is square root n for the reason that h of x is true independent, and it's almost uniform. So almost uniform means that the values 0 to n minus 1, they are all almost equally likely for h of x for a given x. And h of x and h of y are independent for two different keys, x and y. And now here I'll just sketch a small proof, like a warm-up. Maybe you've all seen this, but it's a nice way of thinking, and then I can reuse like the same paradigm when we move on. So the red balls here corresponds to keys. I like to think of them as balls. It's nicer to draw and nicer to think about. And I think of these as buckets or bins. And then I have this random variable m, which is the maximum bucket size. And this is what I want to show is square root n. This is known, and it's been known for ages. I don't think you can really find a reference for the first guy who got this result. So what you do is you count the number of collisions. And the collision, it's two balls in the same bin, two different balls in the same bin. And c is the number of collisions. So I can start out by calculating the expected value of c. There are n choose 2 balls. Each ball goes into the same bin with probability roughly 1 over n. So when I pick the first ball, then the second ball goes in another bin, and it's independently of the choice of the first. And because it's almost uniform, it's roughly this 1 over n. So the expected number of collisions is order n. Okay, so how does this relate to the maximum bucket size? Like this. So if I have m balls in one bin, then I have roughly m squared collisions in that bin. So the number of collisions is at least order m squared. And this means that the expected value of m squared is at most the expected number of collisions within a constant, which is order n. And this expected value squared is less than the expected value of the squared. You can either see this is just Jensen's inequality because x squared is a convex function, or you can see it because the right side minus the left side is actually the variance, it's non-negative. So either way, this implies that the expected max load is square root n. And I would say max load for like the maximum side, maximum size. So it's that was trivial, and now we are all warmed up to something different than the dynamic algorithms, thinking in another way. So what about lower bounds? Is this optimal? You already know from the title that it's probably not optimal, but now you know why I have the title. So there's a paper by Alon, Ditzelfinger, Miltersen, Petrak, and Tardas from almost 20 years ago when I was only 4 years old. And they ask, is linear hashing good? And so you might also notice if we go back, this function, is it really linear? A linear hash function is like h of x plus h of y is equal to h of x plus y. It's not the case, partly because of this mod n and partly because of this b. But I mean, the b doesn't really make a difference, and the mod n is just, it's almost linear. And this is the reason why I kept this linear hash function in the title. Is this, that's what most people think about when they hear linear hash function. They think this ax plus b mod p. Okay, but they ask, is linear hashing good? And they don't come up with any lower bounds for h of x, for this particular hash function that we want to study. But they come up with some lower bounds for some related ones. And there are several indications that it must have a bucket that's around square root n. So the first one is actually not from the paper, but it's also one of these things that's known and it's kind of easy to construct. So there exist two independent hash functions for which the maximum load is square root n with constant probability. So the expected maximum load is square root n. And now I've drawn here, I have n keys, n buckets. And you can prove that if you take roughly square root n keys, put them in one bucket, and then for all the other keys, put them in other buckets. And if you choose the buckets and the keys randomly, then this is actually a two-independent scheme. I won't prove it now, but it's fairly trivial to do. And it shows that two independent won't give us anything. So we need to use more than this h of x, ax plus b. We know it's two independent, but we need to show something more about it if we want to get any better results. And this is kind of the only property that we ever used for linear hashing. So that's an indication that this square root n might be the right thing. Another thing, which is maybe a stronger indication, is the following. So they prove in the is linear hashing good the following. So you have a hash function h of x, and instead of going from a field with p elements, it goes from some field with n elements. So n could be a prime, or it could be a prime power. And instead of taking x to ax plus b, we take a tuple x comma y to ax plus by. So this looks very much the same. And this a and b, instead of being chosen from 0 to p minus 1 at random, they're chosen from the field at random. So it's the same situation, kind of. And what they show is you can find a set of n keys from this universe, f times f, such that if we look at these keys, the expected maximum load is square root n if the size of the field is a square, and they get a lower bound of cube root n if it's not a square. So, and what I mean by the max load is the same as before. We have these keys, and the output, for each output value, I have a bucket. So this is kind of an indication of why you cannot do any better with this ax plus b. And I'll just say that it's not really, so first of all, if I add a c, which is like corresponding to the x plus b, I have this plus c, then it even becomes two independent. So this shows that you cannot even combine the linearity and the two independents to gain anything. Then it might be still that it's square root n size. So we need to find something new. And I would still say there's no really reason why this should apply to h, our ax plus b function, because here we are kind of doing our calculations in a much smaller field. So this is the output size, and it seems like there's something very different going on, because if we go back here, so if we choose A and B, then each bucket will correspond to the point on the line, and it's something very different in our setting, where it's kind of we have p over n points, but they are not on a line. Every line, you could say, in the field goes through every point. So it's kind of a very different thing, and it's not obvious if they are related at all. Okay. And this is the main theorem of the paper. So this is why I say it's awesome. So x is a set of, let x be a set of n keys, and assume my prime is larger than the universe times n. Then the expected maximum load of this set of keys when we apply our hash function to it is at most roughly cube root n. And so this assumption is a little weird, and I will remove it in the full version. It's not actually in the conference proceedings, but when I get time, I will upload it to archive, a version without this. And in this talk, I'll actually prove something much easier than this, but it will kind of give you the feel of the full proof. So I'll prove cube root n times p to the little of 1. And if p is polynomial in n, that's maybe a reasonable assumption, then the result is the same, but p might be much larger, right? And it turns out it's going to be a lot easier, but it's still, there are two parts. There's like a framework, and then there's proving something about the heights of some certain number. We'll come to that. And it turns out getting this p will be kind of trivial, and actually getting it to n will be hard. So other applications, now I'll just give you an overview of what the techniques give. So I'll only focus on the maximum load of this function. So I'll only focus on this square, and this is the most exciting. And but I'll just plugged in what do we get for 2 independents. These are all tied, and these are all tied for 3 independents. So there exist 2 independent hash functions where the maximum load is square root n. And similarly for 3 independent. So if I use ax plus b for linear probing, then what is the worst case insertion time? It might be as large as square root n for 2 independents, but only log n for 3 independents. For minwise hashing, I have a set of n keys, and I have a specific key, and I want to say what is the probability that the hash value of this key is smaller than the hash value of any other key. For 2 independents, it might be as large as 1 over square root n, that's tight. And for 3 independents, it might be log n over n, that's also tight. So in this paper, this is what I'm going to focus on. And then I also in the paper, I look at this kind of related hash function, where this, if n is a power of 2, you kind of take the smallest bits out of the input. This is my hash value. And this is kind of looking at the largest bits instead. And it turns out that the result, that this hash function, it works much better with the result. So we get something better. So we get for linear probing. We are actually more closer to the 3 independence, like we are here, with the max load closer to the 3 independence, and also in the minwise hashing. And obviously, so this is easier to work with, so it also works for the max load. And then if this is actually not in the paper, but like I found out it's almost trivial to use the methods of the paper to get like slightly better than square root n. Okay. So now I only have 5 minutes left. Oh yes. So I will hope that my hash function is 3 independent, and then I'll show the proof of how I get down to cube root n. And instead of counting the number of collision of pairs, I count the number of collision of triples, and I just go and do exactly the same as before. The expected number of collision of triples is order n, and we do exactly the same thing as before, and the max load is cube root n. So the strategy is we need to prove that h of x is actually 3 independent, but it's not. So for instance, if I know h of 1 and h of 2, then, and they are in the same bucket, then the probability that h of 3 is in the same bucket as well is actually 50%, or roughly 50%. So the question is now, how do we prove that it's 3 independent when it's clearly not 3 independent? So the key is we only need to bound the number of collisions. So we need a bound on this quantity. And this is kind of the first technical lemma. And it looks maybe a bit ugly and so on, but now I'll just go through it. So the probability that 3 keys land in the same bucket, it should be order 1 over n squared if h of x was indeed 3 independent. But if x minus z and y minus z are kind of close, then it turns out that the probability is closer to 1 over n. But if they are far away from each other and doesn't look like the same, then it's close to this 1 over n squared. And it's formally the height of a fraction is the maximum of the denominator and the numerator when the numerator and denominator are coprime. So if I have, say, 1 and 10 and 19, then it's the same situation as 1 and 2 and 3. But if I have 1 and 10 and 20, then the situation is different because the height is much larger. And the corollary, if we insert this, then we have n cubed things. This gives the n when I multiply it by 1 over n squared. And then I have n 1 over n times this sum, just by plugging in. So what we want to do now is we want to bound this 1 over the heights expression. 2 minutes, okay. I'll rush through it a little bit then. So what I want to prove is this. I have a set of n integers, and I look at 1 over the height of the ratios. And I want to prove that this is close to n, because if I insert this, then for every c, I know that this is roughly linear, and this is kind of the average over the all possible choices of z I want to get. So then I get this into the 1 plus little over 1. We plug it back into the previous, and I get my result of roughly cube root n. So now I want to show you how to give this bound, but there's 2 obvious things to do. It's not very interesting. The height is at least 1, so I get a bound of n squared. Similarly, you could get a bound of n square root n. And what we really want to do is do something better, but I don't really have time for it, so I'll just kind of like move through things. I want to bound the number of ratios with small height, and this kind of corresponds to bounding the number of solutions to this equation. And it's not so hard because there are n times k ways to choose a and I, because n ways to choose a, k ways to choose I, and then a prime and j are divisors of this left-hand side, and there are not a lot of divisors of small numbers. It's much smaller than, it's not like polylog, but it's like p to the power of 1 over log p. So, and then you get this bound and you plug it in, you get this result. Good. And if you want to get it with the n instead of a p, it's a little more complicated. Now let's go to the open questions. So it's interesting, is not known. Maybe the right answer is like log n instead of like into the 1/3. So it would be nice to find like a polynomial lower bound, or actually show that you could get sub-polynomial, finding better upper bounds, and then finding other applications than just like for hashing with chaining and so on. And also obviously looking at polynomials at degree more than 1. So thank you. Yeah, that's actually a good question. So the question is, if I just code it, what does it look like, right? And if a natural thing, like if you want to find a lower bound, is just take like some very ordered set, 0, 1 to n minus 1. And here I can prove the average max load is order 1. So it's not really a good counterexample. So before I can code it, I need to find some intuition of what is the bad case, and I don't have that really. Yeah, so why stop at 3? Why not 4? And one reason is, so we want this bound here. This bound here, right? This should be order n. So if I have the numbers from 0 to n minus 1, then the number of 4 tuples, expected number of 4 tuples in the same bucket is actually n squared, which means this calculation can never go through. Then you could say, okay, if I actually have an arithmetic progression, then I know the expected max load is 1. So maybe you can do some trade-off. I couldn't get it to work, but it might be very possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is kind of like this multiply shift, actually, I think. What? These bounds? No. So these bounds are tight and these bounds are tight. And this, I don't know at all. But I'm pretty sure that I can actually get this 1/3 in the exponent down here as well.